Hello, I'm John Markowitz. Today's webinar is on solar site assessments. This is part of a larger webinar series about our Case Solar program. It's the second in a series of 3. The first one was about solar incentives and ownership options. We talked about some of the economics of doing solar on your school. This particular one is aimed at solar site assessments, and the particular audience is facilities managers at school districts. We'll be talking about feasibility of going solar and how you determine whether your buildings and property are feasible sites for solar. And we'll talk a bit about the construction process as well. And then our final webinar will be on solar development and on the contractual terms. And here the primary audience is the school district business managers that will be the ones looking over these kind of contracts. The goals in today's webinar are to answer 4 key questions that you may have. The first one is, what is this solar questionnaire that you're going to be receiving to do a free site assessment that the Power Authority will provide you? You might be asking, well, how do we determine whether your school is suitable for solar or not? And we'll answer some of those questions. How much space is required to have solar panels of any significant amount to really offset the energy in your school? And we'll talk a bit about the space requirements. We'll also talk a bit about how photovoltaic or solar systems work with your electric utility, because you're still going to be buying some of your energy from your existing electric utility, and we'll talk about the mechanics of all that. First, to let you know about the New York Power Authority, or NYPA. We're the largest state-owned public power organization in the country. We don't use any taxpayer funds in our operations. We provide power both wholesale and retail in New York State, and we provide about 1/4 of all the electricity in New York State. About 3/4 of that energy is all coming from our hydroelectric plants in Niagara and on the St. Lawrence rivers. We're also very active in energy efficiency in government buildings throughout the state and clean energy technologies such as solar energy. And we've invested almost $2 billion in such efficiency and renewable energy projects throughout the state. Today we'll be talking about our Case Solar program. This program is an aggregated purchasing program. We're going to be forming a coalition of school districts all throughout the state that are interested in purchasing solar. We will administer an RFP on behalf of these school districts all throughout the state, take that administrative burden away from you, and also the technical burden of deciding whether solar is a fit for you or not. We'll get the best pricing possible, because instead of one school district going out to bid for solar, there'll be a coalition of school districts doing so. We'll also make sure you get all the proper incentives from the state and that you can take advantage of the federal tax credits, and we discussed that a bit in some of the other webinars. And something of particular interest is that this program is a partnership between NYPA, NYSERDA, and the State Education Department. And we're working closely with the State Education Department to have an expedited permitting process to get you through the permitting, design, and construction project as quickly as possible to get your solar array up and working on your school. In terms of a solar site assessment, we're going to do these preliminary analysis to determine both the technical and the economic viability of solar at your buildings. And it doesn't have to just be limited to school rooftops. It could also be open property that the school district might own for a ground mount array, and we'll talk a bit about that. It also can be a parking lot canopy. There are a variety of type of sites that we can do assessments for you. The assessments are at no cost to the school district, and our staff completes them for you, returns them to you. There's no obligation for you to proceed beyond the site assessment phase of the program. But we're hoping that these site assessments will show you an estimate of how much energy savings and cost savings that are possible for your school district. And we're hoping you do proceed on to the RFP phase and go to contract and have such systems constructed at your school. We'll be sending you a questionnaire that'll ask some basic questions about your facilities, and then we'll do an analysis of both the technical and economic feasibility of solar for your school. In terms of the kinds of information we're going to be asking you for, we'll be asking you for 12 months of your electric bills, and we've set up our website so you can upload scanned copies of those electric bills to us through the website. We'll be asking you about the age of your roof and the type of roof that you have, the type of roof construction. Now, say for one of those 2 reasons, maybe the school roof is not suitable for solar. We can also look at the alternative locations, such as ground-mounted solar or parking lot canopy solar. And we'll be providing you this free site survey, and you can register on our website to obtain these surveys. The first step is selecting a location. On the website, there's a tool. You can give us the coordinates for your roof or your parking lot or your open field where you want us to consider solar. Then we'll ask questions on a questionnaire about your electric utility and some questions about the buildings as well and the roofs. And we'll do an analysis of your electric bills, and we'll determine what your energy costs are from your existing utility, so we could do a viable comparison between that and what we predict the cost of solar energy will be at your site. We'll also give you a sense of the area that that solar array will take up. So you'll have a preliminary sketch showing you the layout of the solar array on your property, so you'll have a sense of what it'll look like. And we'll give you a preliminary site assessment report. So it'll be a 2-page report summarizing the economics and the technical viability of doing solar at your property. We'll also be looking at things that might limit the amount of solar energy that you could produce at your property that may make your property not suitable for solar. So we'll take a look at those things as well in this preliminary analysis. In terms of the ideal locations for solar, if it's a rooftop mounted solar array, you'll want a roof that's fairly clear, not a lot of air handling equipment, penthouses, skylights, and so forth to shade the solar panels. So pretty open, flat roof is the ideal, something where you have good visibility to the southern sky, so you get the most sunlight throughout the day. In terms of ground mount, you'd also want a fairly flat piece of property, not a huge number of tall trees surrounding it so that it's open, has good access to the sun. Another option is a solar carport. Here again, a parking lot that does not have any shade or obstacles, also with a good view of the southern sky. One thing to note on solar carports, they're generally more expensive because there's a steel structure that has to be assembled for the solar panels to be hosted upon. This adds cost, so the cost of energy from one of these parking lot canopies will be a bit higher from the rooftop or the ground mount alternatives. But if you have no other properties that are suitable for solar, maybe this is an option we'd want to look at. In terms of rooftop considerations, the primary one is the size of the roof. The next most important is the age of the roof. You really don't want to install solar on a roof where the warranty only has a few years left in it. Then you'll be paying to disassemble the solar to replace the roof. That's not a good use of your funds. So we'd suggest the youngest roofs possible or the optimal roofs for this. Flat roofs are optimal for this kind of installation, but sloped roofs and other types of roofs are an option that we could look at. And air handling equipment and other shading obstacles will limit the amount of solar that your roof can host. In terms of an open field, we'd have to take a look at the available land area, the slope of the land. On a ground mount solar array, some other issues come up that don't come up on a roof mount array. Zoning and community concerns, because here you're going to have a solar array that may be visible from a road. People in the community might have an opinion of the way it looks, whereas solar on the rooftop of a school really won't be visible to the residents of the community. So something to take into consideration when permitting ground-mounted solar. We'd also have to look at flooding or whether it's a wetland that we'd be occupying. And the solar developer will do a geotechnical soil analysis to determine if the soil can actually accept the mounting for the solar panels. So there are a couple of permitting issues. The good news is that the solar developer that we would hire would do all this homework for you. In terms of carport solar installations, available area is a key criteria to determining whether your site is suitable for that or not. We'd also have to look at existing underground utilities if there are electric or gas lines under that parking lot that could be difficult for putting a solar carport up. We'd have to look at things like snow plowing and make sure that the solar carport is high enough to allow for your snow plowing equipment to clear out the space underneath. There's some aesthetic concerns and parking issues we'd have to look at as well, but again, the solar developer will do all this upfront homework for you as part of these long-term agreements to sell your school district solar energy. Shading is really important to look at. You basically want a solar array where it's got the maximum exposure to the sun throughout the entire course of the day. You can harvest as much energy out of that asset as possible. trees, nearby buildings, hills, air handling equipment on the roof, penthouses, skylights. All these things have to be taken into account when laying out a solar array, and we'll be doing a lot of that work for you in the free site survey we're going to be providing you. In terms of space requirements, I have some examples here of small, medium, and large commercial scale solar arrays. First one here is at the Bronx High School of Science. This is a 34 kilowatt solar array. Shown on that photo, it's sort of the P-shaped solar array that's flat on that roof. And roof area, depending on the shading, the obstacles, anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 square feet. So that gives you some sense of how large a roof area you'd need just to do something between 50 and 200 kilowatts. The next step up in size would be anywhere from 200 kilowatts to 500 kilowatts in size, and there's a photograph of that on top of a retail building. And you're pretty much trying to cover as much of the roof as possible. Here you're looking at a 20,000 to 50,000 square foot roof. In the example I give for the large solar array, here we're looking at a ground mount array, and this one's up at SUNY Buffalo. This is a 750 kilowatt array that's shown in this aerial photo. And here you're looking at well above 50,000 square feet of space to get a solar array that large. And basically you're not going to be looking at anything over 2,000 kilowatts. That's basically the cap for allowing connection to the electrical grid behind your electric meter at your school facility. So anything from this 50 kilowatt size up to the 2,000 kilowatt size is what we're going to be considering for this program. In terms of determining your space requirements, this is the kind of work we'll be doing in the site survey that we give you. The rule of thumb is for solar power, about 1 kilowatt of solar power requires anywhere from 75 to 200 square feet of roof space. This all depends on orientation, a couple of other factors, but it gives you a rough idea of how much space is required to get to the kilowatts you need. In terms of the energy you get from a solar array, the rule of thumb is between 1,000 and 1,250 kilowatt hours are generated each year for each kilowatt of solar photovoltaic panels that you install. Obviously, they're not going to be producing at night on very cloudy days when they're covered with snow. They're going to basically be giving you zero production, but on the good sunny day, they'll be producing pretty close to their full power rating. Here we give an example, an average school using 55,000 kilowatt hours of electrical energy in a year. So to generate that amount using solar and to completely offset your electric bill from your utility, you would need somewhere around 50 kilowatts of solar to be installed. It would require anywhere from 3,000 to 11,000 square feet of space on your roof. Or if this was a ground mount array, it would be anywhere from 1/10 to 1/4 of the size of a football field. In terms of sizing a solar system to meet your energy needs, you'd have to look at the amount of sunlight available on different days of the year and how that correlates to your energy use. And that's why we're asking for your energy bills to do these kind of analyses. What you're looking at in this chart is a 150 kilowatt solar array. And here's what the output would look like on different days. You could see that first line, the blue line, is a day in June, so maximum amount of sunshine. You get this nice round curve because it's a nice sunny day with no clouds. And you get a long day where you have sunshine over 12 hours of the day. The next line down, this red line, is a day in September with mixed clouds. So you could see this spiky kind of behavior as clouds pass over. And you could also see the day is a good bit shorter than that day in June. So a lot less solar power is being produced on that day. Then here's a worst case day, is maybe a winter day. It's a clear day, so the curve is nice and round. But you could see how the day is far shorter than the day was in June, so a lot less solar energy is being produced for a shorter time and a lot less of it. In terms of estimating your annual energy production, we'll do an analysis in this site survey. We'll model what the size of the solar system you're going to have is. We'll look at typical weather data for your region of the state, and we'll look at that analysis and calculate how much energy it will produce over the course of a year. Give you that estimate in the site survey that you receive. I'll give you some basics on solar photovoltaics, or PV as it's commonly called. What makes up a solar PV system? The first part are these modules, more commonly called solar panels. So your roof would be covered by a large number of those. Those solar panels are electrically combined in what are called strings. So here we have strings of 4 solar panels per string. Then those are all combined together in the wiring, they all go to a central unit called an inverter. An inverter basically converts the DC energy coming from the solar panels to AC energy that your school can then consume. That is then connected to the electrical panel of your school. So your school has a dual feed now. Has one feed from your electric utility, another feed from the solar panels that are going to be on your roof. So the two systems are running in parallel, your electric utility and your solar system. It's connected at your building switchgear or at the main electrical panel. And because of that, your local electric utility will have to approve the drawings that are provided by your solar developer that explain exactly how the electrical interconnection is done. That's an additional layer of permitting, but the solar developer will be doing all that work for you. Your electric utility will have to come, schedule an appointment to put in a brand new electric meter for your facility. This will be called a net meter, and it's basically a meter that can spin in both directions, forwards and backwards, and that'll allow you to net meter the solar energy that's coming off your roof. You might have heard this term, net metering, before. Basically, it allows you to use your electric account as a bank account. On the days that are very overcast, or maybe the solar array is covered with snow, you're going to be consuming energy exclusively from your electric utility. Your meter will spin forwards. Then you have that really nice sunny day in the springtime, and say the solar array is generating more energy than the school is even consuming that day. On that day, your meter is going to spin backwards. It's basically operating as a bank account. You might even have months where you're generating more electricity than you're consuming at that building. On those months, you'll have a negative electric bill. That credit will then go against the following month's electric bill where maybe it's not quite as sunny. So basically you're using your electric meter as a bank account, spinning it backwards and forwards. Remote net metering is a similar concept, except here maybe you have an empty field that could be miles away from the school building. You fill that up with solar, you put a meter there. The electricity that's generated at that location, at that empty field, is then credited against your high school, which might be miles away. And this is allowed also, and this is an arrangement we could make with your electric utility so that you could put solar where it works for you. For some additional information, I'd welcome you to come visit our website where there are more pre-recorded webinars like the one you're watching now. We also have a frequently asked questions section where you could submit questions to us. Also invite you to visit NYSERDA's website to learn more about some of the solar rebates that are available. And also feel free to contact us, send us your questions either by email or by phone. An additional program, a sister program to the K-Solar program I'd like to mention is Community Solar New York. This is a program where the school can host town hall meetings that would be held by some local nonprofit that's interested in solar energy. They would be trying to educate your local population into the benefits of solar so that they can all form a coalition, go out and purchase solar for their homes and get the best pricing possible, because instead of getting pricing for one home going solar, it might be dozens of homes going solar in your community. And your school can be a perfect place to have these kind of town hall meetings to educate the population on solar. And on this slide, we have the contact information for the program manager at NYSERDA that you would contact to learn more about this program. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you register for the K-Solar program and help your school go solar. Thank you.